Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. As you heard, this webinar will be recorded. We will be recording it up until the questions and answers section. We want to just make sure everyone's comfortable asking questions. So to protect your privacy, we will stop recording at that point. We do ask that you put the Q&A, any questions in the Q&A at the bottom. If you could avoid the chat, that would help me just look at one section to find the Q&A. So go ahead during the presentation. If you have any questions, just go ahead and write those in the Q&A and we'll get to that at the end. And we also have Martha Potts with us here today, who will be doing some Spanish translation. So if you would prefer to listen to it in Spanish, please go to the little globe at the bottom and hit Spanish. And Martha, if you want to go ahead and translate all that now, that'd be great.
Ok, muy buenos días, gracias por participar en este webinar hoy día. Queremos informarles que vamos a estar haciendo la presentación, la vamos a grabar primeramente y luego vamos a tener también un momento para hacer preguntas y respuestas. Las queremos que escriban al final de las preguntas, de las presentaciones que tenemos, y luego vamos a tratar de responderlas en el orden en que van llegando y que sean más pacientes con el idioma español porque esas preguntas las vamos a responder mucho después. También tenemos los servicios de interpretación simultánea. Para aquellas personas que quieran escuchar el webinar en español, por favor vayan a la parte inferior de la pantalla, agarren el símbolo del globo, del icono del globo y marquen el idioma español para poder conectarnos en este momento. Gracias.
Okay, I think we're good to go. And
will you, excuse me,
yes.
Can you set up the language for me, please, Marianne? Translation.
I did.
It's not coming out. Can you try again, please?
Absolutely. That work?
No. Can you try reassigning me again with my name, under my name, Marta or Marta Potts, or please?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were already in there. Let me give it another shot here. And all right, how's that? Okay, so Michelle, I will let you go ahead and take it away and introduce yourself and go for it.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. Hello, everyone. I've been asked to talk to you guys today about mental health life after the pandemic for individuals with Down syndrome. My name is Michelle Maddox, and I am joining you from right outside of Charlotte, North Carolina today. So if a y'all slips in there, that's why. I am a licensed clinical social worker in North and South Carolina. I kind of live right on the state line, so I go back and forth between both states. And my private practice is No Limits Counseling and Coaching. I provide mental health counseling for teens and adults with Down syndrome and relationship coaching in the form of groups for all intellectual developmental disability diagnoses. I've worked with individuals with disabilities, including Down syndrome, in various direct care roles, off and on for 20 years. So the skills that I talk about with my clients and the groups that I've developed are all related to common mental health and relationship struggles I've observed while working or volunteering in the community. Before we get started, I just want to give you a little disclaimer that this content is intended to educate and provide ideas for self-help and should not be used as a substitute for therapy or mental health care. Before we get started, let's talk a little bit about what we know about Down syndrome. Of course, if you've met one person with Down syndrome, you've met one person with Down syndrome. They all have individual qualities and traits, but there are some characteristics that are commonly seen throughout the Down syndrome community. It's often said that they are highly perceptive of others' feelings and emotions. So they can tell how you're feeling. If you're stressed or worried, they might come up to you and try to comfort you, and you didn't even know that you had shown that you were upset. We hear a lot about their preference for routine or sameness. And a lot of times they might have difficulty understanding passage of time. So something that happened several years ago, it may seem that they're kind of stuck on it, Well, that's because they don't really recognize, or it's hard for them to tell that it's something that happened a long time ago. They also have a strong long-term memory, can remember minute details from events that happened long ago. And then, of course, there are some common medical issues that are often seen in the population, whether it's sleep issues, sleep apnea, gastrointestinal issues, or thyroid issues. Now, I mention these because they can have an impact or influence an individual with Down syndrome's mental health. For example, being highly perceptive of others' emotions. So when we're talking about the pandemic and how we have been in quarantine for the last couple of years, they may have spent a lot of time at home with family members and observed our stress or being upset, or maybe they saw a family member that was sick and it's increased their anxiety or their worry for others. Of course, during the pandemic, all of our routines had to change, and some of us may have gotten into negative or not so healthy routines or grooves, which is often talked about in the Down syndrome community. And I'll talk about that in a minute. And of course, it takes time for us to get out of routines that we've gotten comfortable in. And for individuals with Down syndrome, it might take them even longer since they appreciate and it helps them function to be in a routine. So trying to change that can sometimes be stressful for them. They might have difficulty recognizing passage of time. So every time they think of an event, especially a negative event, they might experience strong feelings like that event just happened yesterday. So we're going to talk a little bit about grief today. If you've had a family member that has died, and maybe the individual with Down syndrome, when all of that was initially happening, maybe you thought they were handling it pretty well. And then a month later, they got upset about it and they remember everything that happened around that event, because to them, it doesn't really feel like a month ago. It feels like just yesterday. So they're experiencing those feelings like it just happened. The strong long-term memory, of course, remembering every detail of past events is a strength, but if it was a negative event, that can be somewhat traumatic and it may elicit symptoms similar to post-traumatic stress disorder in individuals with Down syndrome. And then, of course, anytime anybody is seeking out mental health, it's good to rule out medical conditions. For example, we talked about sleep disturbances or sleep apnea. So if you're seeing changes in behavior or mood, is it related to them not sleeping well? Is that why they're irritable or having depressed symptoms? They could be having thyroid issues, and maybe that's making them feel lethargic or not wanting to participate in activities. Or gastrointestinal issues may be causing them pain, and that's why they've been in a bad mood lately. So it's good to see a medical doctor and a mental health professional simultaneously to kind of rule out other conditions that could be causing changes in behavior or mood. So before I get started, I kind of want you to keep this concept in the back of your head when we're talking today, the 1% better every day philosophy. A lot of you may have heard of Chris Nikic. He was the first man with Down syndrome to finish an Ironman race. And he does a lot of motivational talks and speeches about his 1% better everyday philosophy. And that's what he used while he was training. And he talks about when he first started with this, he could only do 1 push-up and 1 sit-up. And then the next day he tried to do 2 push-ups and 2 sit-ups. So he didn't go from 1 to 100 within a matter of days or weeks. He said by the time he got to the race that he was able to do 200 sit-ups and push-ups. So that's what I want you to think about when we're talking about changing behavior or routine, or doing, making improvements in their life or healthier living. Just try to make minor changes or tweaks in their schedule or routine, and those can be beneficial and healthy. It doesn't have to be all of these changes at one time. Modifying the groove. So if you have ever heard Dr. Chicoine or Dr. McGuire talk or read any of their books, they are from the Adult Down Syndrome Center in Chicago, and they talk a lot about the groove, which is often referring to a routine that a lot of people with Down syndrome like to be in. It might be there's a certain way that things have to be done, or they like things done in a certain order. Maybe they have a particular place where they like their things, or a favorite activity that they do daily. They recently did a presentation about individuals with Down syndrome making lists and writing or journaling a lot. So even though to us, observing these behaviors, it may seem a little bit like obsessive compulsive disorder, in the Down syndrome community, it's often, instead of causing stress, these behaviors are used to promote independence, or maybe it's a coping skill, or it helps keep them calm. So these behaviors are actually beneficial to them. But when it starts interfering with daily tasks, it may be more of an OCD issue that should be explored further. So if we're thinking about negative routines that they may have gotten in, or things that you're trying to change after the pandemic, just a few things that you could do to try to adjust that. So maybe you assign a certain part of the day where they're allowed to do that activity, so it doesn't take up all of their day. Visuals like a calendar are really good to use. So they can see that they're going to have time in the day to do that activity. Maybe you review the night before. Well, this is our schedule for tomorrow. If you have a family member that likes to write or make lists, sometimes that can be all consuming. So maybe you tell them, all right, after lunchtime, you'll have an hour where you can sit down and do your writing. Or just giving them choices when they want to do these preferred activities. Some of my clients are very picky about they have to take a shower at 7 p.m. every night. But maybe you have a family event that you really want them to attend, and it's going to interfere with their shower time. So just giving them choices so they feel like that they're in control and have some say about their routine. You know, you can take a shower tonight at 5 before we go, or you can take one when we get home at 8. It's your choice. And of course, using visual aids is beneficial for anyone. A lot of times people think that they're just useful for kids, but there's really no age limit. We all have cell phones, and that is considered a visual aid. So if you use pictures on their cell phone to remind them to do things, or print out different printables of coping skills, or calendars, or schedules, or lists, anything that can help them visualize what they're doing in their day. It could be a first bin chart. First, you're going to do this, and then you get to do this. Using timers, of course, or playlists. I know I keep referring to the shower thing, but some of my clients like to take extra long showers. Maybe you put on their 3 favorite songs and tell them, okay, when these 3 songs are over, it's time to get out of the shower because you have to get to work on time. And then also talking about adjusting their schedule, try to gradually add positive activities or coping skills into their already established routine. It would be stressful for them to just cut off their routine altogether because, like I said, this is a form of independence for them. They've learned how to do these skills on their own because they're in this order and in this routine. But you could add little things like, okay, after shower, before you go to bed, let's practice the deep breathing exercises that we've been talking about. Or for those individuals that like to make lists, all right, you can make your list of superheroes today, but on one page, I want you to make a gratitude list, and list out 5 things that made you feel happy today. So those are just little changes that you can add in to their already established routine or groove to try to make it more healthy. This is a chart, for example, of a visual that I've used with a lot of my clients, initially starting in quarantine when they were at home with not a lot of activities, just trying to get them to be more healthy. So I kind of teach them first about how Your mind and body and environment and people around you all impact your life and living and healthy and being well. And so we'll go over different activities, and then I try to get them to do one activity for each color a day. And as you'll see, these aren't big things. It's not going to change a lot in their day, but at least if they're hanging out in their room all the time or on screens too much, this gets them away from that just a little bit. For example, the red section, we talk about healthy things for your mind. So maybe if they like to do art or puzzles or a word search or listening to music, just sitting outside or connecting with a friend or family member. Again, not big things, just something to get their mind functioning in a different way. We talk about what's healthy for your body, whether it's exercising or eating healthy or drinking water. Some of my clients don't really like to exercise, but most of them love to dance. So I'll tell them, again, using the playlist as kind of a timer, I want you to pick out your 3 favorite songs and just dance around your room until those songs are over. And at least that gets them up and being active a little bit. We talk about having a healthy, clean environment and how that can make you feel more calm and better. I will say that oftentimes individuals with Down syndrome are very clean and organized. And I've had a lot of parents say how they have to get after their typical teenager to clean their room, but never their teen or adult with Down syndrome. So maybe it's just getting them out of their comfortable environment. If they spend a lot of time in their room, hey, I need you to come downstairs and do one chore for me today, or we're going to go outside for a little bit and do some work in the yard. And then I teach them about how thinking of other people and taking the focus off ourselves sometimes can make us feel happy. We talk about how doing nice things for others can make you feel good, even though that's not why we do it, but it might be a positive side effect. So we'll come up with a list of what are some little things you can do today to be kind to others, just saying thank you, or doing a chore without being asked, or giving someone a compliment. And then, of course, I present it to them in this checklist so they can kind of keep up with the different things that they've done. And then another side effect of the pandemic are feelings of grief and loss that might be lingering. It doesn't have to be death. It could be maybe there was a staff person that used to work with them that hasn't reconnected with them since we came out of quarantine. Maybe there was a divorce, or a sibling moved out or went to college. Maybe they left a program or finished up at a school and they're grieving that environment or the people they used to know there. Or maybe they haven't been able to stay in touch with friends, or they lost a friendship, or a dating relationship ended because of quarantine. These are all different reasons why they might be experiencing grief. Something that should be noted in the Down syndrome population, they often experience what's called delayed grief. So like I mentioned earlier, there might be a sad or stressful event occurring and you think, oh, they're handling this really well. And then a month later, they might break down and be really tearful about it. It's like it was just processed and it just registered to them. There also may be certain seasons or places or people that trigger the sad memories for them. So if they had a sibling that left in the fall to go to college, maybe every August or September, they kind of get those depressed or grieving symptoms again. Or maybe they had a bad event that happened at a school or a medical office or a job. And every time they drive past that building, it kind of triggers those feelings of sadness. Or maybe there's certain people, if it was a bully or, like we said, somebody that passed away, that whenever they see a picture of them, it makes them upset. So it's just good to talk about those triggers if you know that they're going to be exposed to them, or you know the certain time of year is coming up. Just go ahead and start having conversations with them about it. It's also good if you know a change is coming, or if a family member is sick, or if there's going to be a move, to go ahead and start having conversations with them and prepare them in advance. If they're changing schools, drive past the school or ask them if they can go on a tour of the school. As much visual exposure as they can have to things will help them kind of process these events more easily. And then, of course, again, if it's a person, somebody that died or somebody they don't see anymore, or a relationship that ended, you can talk about it and use visuals to help them focus on happy memories. Maybe you have a photo album or put together a memory book to talk about that person, or watch videos. And you just kind of want to meet them where they're at. Again, like we said, the delayed grief, it might go on for years. Maybe their grandfather died 5 years ago, and then their friend's grandfather died this year. And they're just as sad for their friend's grandfather as they were for their own grandfather years ago. Sometimes it makes families feel better to know that this is kind of a normal behavior in the Down syndrome population. So just kind of listen to them and show empathy and understanding that that this is hard for them, and then try to help them transition to a fun activity or a calm down activity. Now, depending on how long these conversations and thoughts have been going on, you may want to limit the conversation. I've had families that their daughter was upset about a friendship that ended, and she has gone on and on about it for 2 years. And the family is saying, we just can't listen to this anymore. So of course, it's easier said than done. Sometimes you just want to put limits on those conversations. So maybe listen to it and then give them, concrete, well, I understand that was a hard time, but it happened when you were 22 and now you're 28. So that was a long time ago. So let's think of something positive that we can do to remember that person, or let's go do a fun activity. And then I just want to add a little side note that sometimes the helper that came in to help the person work through the grief can also become a trigger. So this happened to me with one of my clients. She is the one who was upset about a friendship that had ended because they got in a fight and the girl called her names. And so she would go on and on every day. She needs to apologize. I'm so upset about this. She would get really worked up, and the family was just so concerned. So after I worked with her for over a year, and we slowly tapered down to after once a week appointments to every 2 weeks. And then we were only meeting monthly. And the family said, she hasn't really been talking about that episode as much anymore. But every time we tell her it's time to meet with Michelle tonight, she immediately goes to that scenario. So at this time, I had become a trigger for her because she knew that she had started meeting with me to talk about that one specific incident. So every time she heard she was about to meet with me, that brought her back in time to that incident, and she got upset about it. So we kind of transitioned out of services, and she started participating in a group with me instead of counseling. And that kind of helped decrease the conversations about that topic. Of course, it still comes up, but it's not as upsetting. And she was able to move on a little bit about it. So just something to think about if you're seeking help for your loved one with Down syndrome that may be having any kind of issues, getting stuck in certain situations, that sometimes the helper that came in to help them move past that can become the trigger. So just something to watch out for. So with managing routines and trying to have more overall wellness and improve mental health, there are some skills and activities that you can practice at home. And even though when working with my clients, of course, it's individualized to their needs, but there are certain topics and skills that I address with my clients pretty often. And so I was just going to introduce you to those today and kind of give you some ideas of some things that you can do at home to help develop these skills, whether it's to help them move past grief or be able to express themselves better, or just practice more coping skills or calm down activities. These are all kind of behaviors and skills that I see that kind of feed into their mental health and wellness. The first one is just active listening. I'll just mention briefly that almost always the first time I meet with a client, so it's just a get to know you session, I'll just let them talk basically about whatever they want just to establish rapport. I will get a text or an email from a parent that says, oh my gosh, they just seem so much lighter after talking to you, or they were actually smiling when they came in after the session. So sometimes just letting them talk about anything and everything that they want to talk about so that they feel heard can make them feel better. Of course, if you live with them and you're hearing this stuff all the time, it might be a little bit more difficult for you to be present and listen to that again. So I know this is easier said than done. But if you have a family member or a friend, somebody, a staff person that used to work with them that they could reach out to and just have like a 5-minute conversation a week just to let them go on about whatever they want and get it off their chest, that can be helpful. And then as far as cognitive exercises, again, because mental health, we're focusing on that and just overall wellness. It all works together. Most of you may have heard of Dr. Brian Scotko out of Boston, and he's done a lot of research about cognition and Alzheimer's in individuals with Down syndrome. That is him and his sister with Down syndrome. And he did a short video series about improving cognition in individuals with Down syndrome. And these are some of the things that he listed that are very beneficial to improving cognition. So I do incorporate a lot of these activities or exercises in my sessions, especially in the beginning if I'm establishing rapport with the client. But obviously these are games that you can play at home, just doing brain games like traditional memory card games or identifying differences in photos, name that tune, crossword puzzles, word search. Again, it's just getting them to use different parts of their brain that we're not always exercising. He also says that having a meaningful conversation for just 5 minutes a day can improve cognition, just asking open-ended questions. So if there's a family that is in the background of a virtual session, they may wonder, why am I spending 5 minutes talking to them about what they did yesterday or what they had for breakfast or what they're going to do this weekend? I'm just trying to get them to practice those conversation skills. And then obviously we all know that socializing and eating well and physical activity are also good for our mental health. If you have a loved one that is kind of stuck at home these days and you're having a hard time getting them back out into the community, even virtual groups or activities that they can participate in virtually would be beneficial at this time. Just getting them connected with some peers can help them improve mood. Self-advocacy skills are obviously important in this population, and that could be goal setting, knowing their strengths and struggles, or asking for help. So a lot of times I will talk to my clients about, what do you want in your life? Do you have job goals that you are working towards? Do you have independent living goals, or where do you want to live when you get older? Do you have relationship goals? Do you want to have a boyfriend or girlfriend one day? So just empowering them to know what they're working towards in their life. Also knowing their strengths and struggles, likes and dislikes, and being able to express those to other people. A lot of times I'll ask them, well, what are you good at? Or what do you like about yourself? And a lot of times it's hard for them to express that. So maybe talking to them about, well, you're a really good dancer, and oh, you're great at writing, and don't you think you're a nice friend and a kind person? This can also help boost their self-esteem. And then as far as being able to express things they like and don't like, this can decrease negative behavior. So instead of acting out, if they're able to verbalize what they like or don't like or what their frustrations are, it might prevent some negative or acting out behaviors. And then asking for help. I've had a couple clients with Down syndrome that have been fired from jobs because they were confused about something at work, or they didn't know exactly what they were supposed to be doing. And instead of asking for help, they demonstrated an inappropriate behavior to try to get attention instead. So we practice these skills a lot of times with role play activities, like pretend like you're the boss and have them say, practice asking for help. Sometimes we don't realize that that's kind of a hard thing to do sometimes, especially for adults. They think that they should be able to do everything by themselves, or they might be embarrassed that they can't do something, so they don't want to ask. So just telling them that everybody needs help and it's okay to ask, and this is how you can do it. Role play activities are very good for establishing and developing new behaviors. Emotional literacy. So like we said, a lot of times people with Down syndrome are very good at this, being able to recognize how other people feel and expressing their own feelings. But it's still something that is good to practice and try to increase their emotional vocabulary. I should have said in the beginning, all of these things are good for all ages. You're never too young or too old to try to develop these skills. So just get them to practice using different feeling words. I do emotional check-in with my clients every time they come in. Some of them are better at expressing themselves than others. Some might need some prompting, whether it's looking at different facial expressions like I have up on the screen, or I might give them a list of words to choose from. But either way, we practice this every session. Or they might come on and say, oh, I feel fine today. Well, does fine mean that you feel happy? Does fine mean that you feel calm? Does fine mean you're excited? So I try to get them to express themselves using different words just to expand their vocabulary. Also, recognizing how their body feels when they're having a certain emotion. And I'll share some resources at the end to try to give you some visual aids to help them learn this stuff. But we'll talk about, so when you get angry, does your face ever get hot? Or when you feel nervous, do you ever get a stomach ache? So once they're able to realize that my body feels this way when I'm having a certain emotion, it's easier for them to kind of stop and control those emotions, especially if it's some of the hard emotions like anger or frustration. They can tell themselves, oh, my face is starting to feel hot. That's a sign. That means I need to go calm down for a minute. And then we'll practice identifying feelings of others, whether it's in movies or TV shows. So if your loved one with Down syndrome has a favorite movie that they like to watch every day, or a TV show, maybe you can put a little spin on it to make it more educational. Watch the movie with them and say, oh, look at that person. They seem upset. Or how do you think they feel right now? How do you know they're feeling that way? What does their face look like? Or what is their body doing? Or what would you tell them? How could they have acted differently? Or how can you help them calm down? And we'll have different conversations about things like that. You can also use mainstream games. So if you have Uno or Candyland or Jenga, again, this will promote these conversations in kind of a fun way. So if you're playing Uno, every time you discard a red color, maybe you talk about a time that you felt angry, or how would you help a friend calm down if they were angry? Or every time you put down a blue card, tell me about a time you were sad and how did you make yourself feel better? Every time you put down a yellow card, tell me about something that makes you happy, or what can you do for other people to make them happy? And same thing with Candyland, just assign the different colors on the board, different emotions to prompt discussion. And then with the Jenga game, you can write questions on the wooden block. So this is good for emotions and social skills. Questions about themselves. Are they able to express their likes and dislikes? You can write anything on the Jenga cards, like, tell me how you're feeling today, or how would you introduce yourself to a new friend? Different things like that. And then every time they pull out a block, they have to answer the question. Or you could write a role play scenario on the block and they have to act that out when they pull the block out. So those are just a few examples of ways that you can increase emotional literacy, again, at all ages. And then I was going to show you a video today. And this is just an example of some videos that I might use during sessions. So you can find anything on YouTube. This is an example from the movie Inside Out. And it kind of goes through different emotions. We're going to watch how it shows the character acting in a certain way. And then it pauses and it asks you, how is she feeling? So this will just give you an example of some of the videos that I use. All right, are they up here? Sorry, technical difficulty. Here it is. Okay, so we won't watch the whole thing, but just to give you an example. All right, so then it pauses and I'll have a conversation with my clients. How do you think she was feeling? What was she doing? Why do you think she was feeling that way? The same thing again. We'll say, what happened? Why was she so upset? Has anything like that ever happened to you before? How did you handle it? So just starting conversations around those things. And like I said, you can find anything on YouTube, any of the skills that we're talking about today. If you put them in the search, you can find videos. Visuals are very good at teaching these kind of skills. All right. Next topic, psychoeducation. A lot of times when working with my clients with disabilities or Down syndrome, counseling sessions are more directive or educational than traditional counseling sessions. They probably haven't heard a lot about mental health, or they don't know how all of these things work together to make them feel happier or better or more calm. So just teaching them, like the chart I showed earlier, that your body and mind and environment and other people all work together to help you feel good. And then I'll do a lesson, a modified lesson about cognitive behavioral therapy. If any of you have ever been in counseling before, you've probably used CBT in some way. And I teach them how our thoughts can affect our feelings and our actions. So if we're having negative thoughts and thinking bad or sad things all the time, then that's going to make us feel sad or angry. And then we might be kind of snippy or rude to our family or friends. And then I'll tell them if we're having happy or calm thoughts or thinking about good memories, then that might make us feel happy or excited or calm. And then we're nicer to the people that are around us. So just teaching them these concepts, it kind of helps them realize what is going on in their head or why they're feeling certain ways. And then I also use something called change the channel technique. And I teach them, if you're watching something on TV and you don't like what you're watching, you change the channel or you turn it off. So I want you to think about doing that in your brain. If you're thinking about something and you notice that you're feeling stressed or sad, change the channel and think about a happy memory or a happy place or somebody that makes you laugh. And I'll help them come up with a list of happy things, like where is their happy place? Where do they feel the most comfortable? Tell me about a happy memory with your friends, and they'll keep that list with them. So when they need to reference it, they can go back to it. And obviously, coping skills are a huge part of mental health counseling. A lot of times, individuals with disabilities have just been told, oh, you need to stop acting like that, or you need to go calm down, but they've never actually been taught how to calm down or what to do. So I spend a lot of time just going over coping skills and practicing them and giving them visuals like the one that's listed here on the side. One of the first things we usually start with is deep breathing exercises. A lot of them don't know how breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth is kind of the right way or the best way to take deep breaths and calm down. So using visuals, excuse me, like a flower, you breathe in through your nose like you're smelling a flower, and then blow out through your mouth like you're blowing out a candle on your cake. And we'll practice this and we'll watch videos about it. For my clients that have phones, I tell them, save a picture of a flower and a candle in your phone so it will remind you if you're feeling upset, okay, I need to breathe in through my nose like I'm smelling a flower and blow out through my mouth like I'm blowing out a candle. We also do a lot of muscle relaxation exercises. Again, on YouTube, there's guided muscle relaxation where it'll kind of talk you through the different muscles in your body and how to tense them up and relax them. It could just be squeezing a stress ball, hugging a pillow or a stuffed animal, but we practice it in the session so the clients can recognize the difference. Like, hey, when you were squeezing your shoulders up to your ears and squeezing your muscles tight, that's what it means to be tense or stressed. And then when you relax and let your muscles go like jello, that's what it feels like to be calm, just so they recognize the differences in their body and how that feels. Another exercise is grounding, and we're going to watch a video on that one too. So grounding helps you focus on the present. A lot of times when people are feeling worried or stressed, it's about something that happened in the past that they can't stop thinking about, or something that's about to happen in the future that they're worried about. So grounding helps you focus on the present and what is going on right now. And it uses all 5 of the senses. And it's very easy to do just sitting in the room. And like I said, we'll watch the video, but it kind of, you go through the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So 5 is just look around and name 5 things that you see. And then 4 is just name 4 things that you can reach out and touch. So it's helping you focus on your environment and your immediate surroundings. And then journaling is a good coping skill for people with Down syndrome, especially if they like to write. A lot of my guys and girls that like to make lists. Like I said earlier, I might give them some positive journaling prompts like, okay, when you're having your list time, I want you to do 1 page of, and I might do like fill in the blank questions. Tell me about your happy place. What's something good that happened today? Who is somebody that was nice to you today? What is your favorite song? Or maybe a gratitude list, listing out what are 3 good things that happened to you today that made you feel good. And for those individuals that don't like to write or cannot write, the purpose of journaling is just to get all these things that are swarming in your head out into the universe. So it doesn't have to be written down. They could do a voice recording on their phone. Again, it's just to get it out of their head, or they can text it into their phone. So those are just a few examples. Again, using visual aids, like this is one that I made for one of my clients up on the screen, and YouTube videos. Visuals, videos, visuals, videos. I can't reinforce that enough, are really good to use to help develop these skills. And then the last thing would be to practice or learn these activities when the individual is not upset. You don't want to wait till they're crying hysterically or acting out about something and say, oh, well, let's learn how to take some deep breaths. It's better if you do it when they're calm. Like we said earlier, just go ahead and fit it into their regular routine, whether you want them to practice calm down activities before bedtime. That'll help them sleep as well. And then when they are upset, it'll be easier for them to recall, oh, this is what I need to do to calm down. I've been practicing this. So let's watch this grounding video, and you can kind of follow along and do it with them as they go through it.
The 5-4-3-2-1 method is a grounding exercise that can help you stay in the moment and avoid negative thinking and worry. You can do this exercise anywhere, at home, at school, in the car, or even in the middle of a crowd. You can do it sitting, standing, or laying down. Counting down from 5, use your senses to list things around you. Make an effort to notice details about these things. This is how to do it. Start by breathing deeply in through your nose and out through your mouth. Then slowly look at your surroundings. Find 5 things that you can see around you. Maybe you see a colorful poster on the wall, the spider web on the bookshelf, the lamp on the nightstand with the red shade, the cat sleeping peacefully on the chair, the cactus on the dresser that has finally bloomed. Then list 4 things that you can touch. The warm mug in your hands, the soft comforter on the bed, the denim of your jeans, the scratchy carpet under your feet. Next, listen for 3 things you can hear. Maybe the ticking of a clock, the quiet hum of your computer, the sound of traffic from outside. Now try to find 2 things that you can smell. The tea in your mug, the clean scent of your clothes. Finally, list 1 emotion that you feel.
Okay, so that was the 5-4-3-2-1, and you'll see it in different ways. Sometimes when it gets to the 1, it might be taste. So that's kind of a hard one to do. Name 1 thing you can taste, or what is a taste that you like? Do you like to eat cookies or chewing gum? Or sometimes they just say, like this one said, name 1 thing you can feel, or sometimes it'll end with say 1 positive thing about yourself. So just another example of some of the good videos that you can use on YouTube to reinforce these skills. And then mental health treatment, I don't feel like can be done with people with Down syndrome or any disability without also incorporating some relationships and boundaries training or skill development. I found that when I first started doing counseling with this population, most of the struggles or stressors that they were coming in with were related to relationships in some way. So I just started incorporating these kind of skill development activities into the sessions as well. Whether the client was feeling isolated, I've started a list of organizations and activities in my area to connect my clients and help get them out of the house. Even if they were only going and doing an activity once a month, at least that's connecting them with their peers in some way. Some of my clients were feeling like they didn't have any meaningful relationships, or they didn't understand why their friends from high school were not talking to them anymore. So maybe they had been texting or sending messages or emails over and over and over to somebody with no response. So we kind of talk about qualities of a good friend and how to develop relationships and how you want to find people that have things in common with you. And that's how you have healthy, good relationships. Again, healthy relationships are very much connected to mental health. Maybe they had a misunderstanding of boundaries with coworkers or peers. Like I've said, I've had clients that got fired from jobs, not because they couldn't do the task of the job, but because maybe they had some kind of inappropriate interaction with a coworker. So just teaching them from the circles curriculum, different boundaries that are appropriate for different people in our lives. And again, role play activities are very good at practicing and developing these skills. A lot of my clients had a desire to have what we call a sweetheart, whether they want a boyfriend or girlfriend, but they don't know how to get one. Or maybe they call somebody their boyfriend or girlfriend, but that person hasn't agreed to be their boyfriend or girlfriend. So I'll talk to them about how relationships develop and everything from having a crush on someone, what if they don't have a crush back, all the way through sex ed topics. And then internet safety has always been a concern, but became an even bigger issue during quarantine because everyone was so desperate to connect with someone. A lot of my clients got messages from strangers that were pretending to be famous people, and maybe they got tricked into sending them money. So we'll go over internet rules and safety and how we should only talk to our friends and family online, people that we know that we've met face to face. So like I said, relationships and boundaries and mental health are very closely tied in this community. And I try to work on developing mental health skills and relationship skills at the same time. So here's a list of some resources or where you can find some of these visuals and videos to reinforce these behaviors. If you've never looked at the Adult Down Syndrome Center Resource Library, I highly recommend it. They have videos and a lot of printables from coping skills to daily routines. They have videos about how to decrease stress, anything from that to how to use a CPAP machine, a lot of independent living skills and healthy eating and living videos. And then they also list a lot of their free webinars. A good one that they recently did that would be relevant to this would be the decline and regression of behaviors in individuals with Down syndrome. And then there's also a webinar that they did about the groove in individuals with Down syndrome that would be good to watch as well. As I mentioned before, Dr. Chicoine and Dr. McGuire have written 2 mental wellness in adults with Down syndrome books. And I don't think it matters how old your family member is with Down syndrome. It's a very good read. It's not too technical and kind of goes through the lifespan and gives you all kinds of ideas about mental wellness and how to promote that in people with Down syndrome. And then, of course, the Down Syndrome Connection of the Bay Area has a great mental health Padlet with a lot of printables for coping skills and mental health information on there. If you're interested in checking out Dr. Scott Coe's How to Increase Cognition, you can look at downsyndromebraintrain.com, and that's where you can find those videos. I think it's just like 5 videos and they're like 10 to 15 minutes each. Of course, I've mentioned YouTube a lot for all of these mindfulness and coping skills videos. And then as far as healthy relationships and boundaries and developing social skills, the last 2, amaze.org is a great site for healthy relationships and boundaries. It's kind of animated. It goes all the way through from friendships to gender to sexuality, all those topics. The good thing about that website is along with the videos, there's a parent section that kind of gives you advice on activities and how to talk about these different topics. And then the last one is the Peers program that was developed out of UCLA. I think it's more specifically for individuals with autism, but the role play videos are great. You can look them up on YouTube. Just look up Peers program role play videos, and it shows, how to initiate a conversation, and it will give you the good way to do it and the bad way to do it. So the individual can kind of compare the appropriate or inappropriate interactions, and you can have discussions about it. And again, that goes from everything from just introducing yourself to someone to how to ask someone on a date, how to accept rejection, all of those kind of topics. So hopefully through all of those resources, you can find some things to print out and watch at home to kind of reinforce what we have been talking about today. And that is it. Please reach out with any questions. If we don't have time here, I can answer via email. I have my website. My email is Michelle with 1 L at nolimitscounseling.org. And then I try to share mental health and relationships and boundaries information on my social media. So if you would like to follow that, I try to make that a good resource for everyone as well. And that is it, Mary.